In today's episode, we unpack what the hell even is executive presence and how do we reimagine it for the ways that we're working today.
Welcome to Brave Proximity, the space where leaders and changemakers finally exhale, tell the truth, and get the validation they rarely receive. This is not a how-to podcast. This is not motivational wallpaper or corporate comfort language. Here, the messy, is it just me? Moments become turning points. I'm Marissa Green.
I'm Susan Page, and we are futurists and practitioners who have spent decades inside turbulence, helping leaders who care deeply navigate culture, crisis, egos, expectations, and everything in between. We've seen the gap between what leaders and changemakers feel and what they're allowed to say. Brave Proximity is a place to close that gap. Each episode starts with the elephant in the room, often disguised as a pet peeve, and we follow it to the deeper truth underneath. We do not just talk about leadership. We get close to what leadership actually feels like.
Executive presence is just conformity dressed up in boardroom lighting. Ugh. Like a big, heavy.
It's so gross.
So what's the last YouTube video you watched on how not to be yourself?
So my prep, as far as executive presence, is usually going into the bathroom and sitting there or sitting in my office. Instead of looking in the mirror and thinking, like, how can I show up as my authentic self? It's memorizing all the trigger words for each of the executives so that we don't go down a rabbit hole.
Yes. Avoid the rabbit holes. Practice your smile. Or actually, it's more like, have you ever had this experience where I've seen this more for women than I have for men. There's a particular face that has to happen in the executive room, and it isn't
Like a
the smile.
confirmatory.
It's not the smile. It's like strength and it's not quite bitch face, but it's close.
Yeah.
Where all
Heaven
of a sudden,
forbid emotion exists.
heaven forbid emotion. And I feel badly for this because legitimately women have had to learn how to like push emotion to the side
yes.
in order to be able to sit in the same room. Right. And so I've had this experience a couple of times. We both have so many stories on this, but one of the experiences I would be in a meeting in a, not in the boardroom, right, with these two leaders. And in the meeting, not in the boardroom, jovial, fun, funny, smiling, like really human.
Yeah.
And then immediately when we get into the boardroom or the executive room, it's like,
don't make eye contact.
just stone cold. And I was really taken aback because I really try to be myself in all those situations.
Yes.
And of course,
consistency of character.
Yeah, professionalism, et cetera. It's not like I'm going to be, cracking a dirty joke in the executive room, although
it could.
Some people do.
Yes.
But I was really taken aback because I didn't understand why all of a sudden the performance had to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's always what's kind of stuck with me about others, but also have experienced it myself. I've had leaders tell me, you should turn a performance on more.
Yes.
You should put the boardroom lighting on and legitimately pretend to be a certain way inside these experiences. And I remember working at one company where that was happening, right? The leaders saying like, you need to work on your executive presence and here are the ways that you do it. And then I would go into an executive committee meeting.
Yeah.
And I, in particular, would look around and I would see the men joking with each other, having fun, it wasn't quite emotion, but they were able to be themselves.
Right.
And I was like, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
Why can't I? And I'm still trying to figure it out because it's still this biased experience that we have.
This is one of my favorite topics. So I'm going to bring in the elephant in the room, which is, I mean,
I skipped ahead to the story.
Thank God we have this statue here.
Yes.
But I think the elephant in the room is, I think it's actually what the hell even is executive presence, because we are all pretending and I don't think we have a definition of it. And I think I would personally like to scratch that term from our vocabulary. But that is what it is like, I think we do not have a defined executive presence, but we keep on demanding it from people.
We keep dressing it up as something that you need to have in order to grow your career inside corporate organizations as some kind of known expectation that does have a method behind it, right? People teach it.
Yes.
So there is some kind of method, but I think also what's happening is it's changing.
It is changing.
I think it finally, and hopefully for the better, And also, I think it's going to have to change.
Yeah.
I think as we enter this new way of working, as we have this mix between technology, robots, and humans,
Yep.
we no longer need people to put on a performance or a robotic nature, right? That stone cold, I'm not
Yeah.
going to show any emotion. If you start doing that, you're not going to be differentiated
No.
anymore. And
No.
so I think that there's this element of it hasn't been defined well to date,
Mm-hmm.
and we have this great opportunity to redefine what it
Redefine
could
it.
be,
Yeah.
right? What if executive presence was authenticity?
I love what you're saying. I also, I think sometimes we go on here to ways that it's backfired in the past. So I love the looking forward piece.
Mhm.
And some of the healthiest cultures that I've existed in, the executive team and even the board. I remember I remember doing a presentation when after COVID and did a presentation to the board on how we were going to reimagine work.
Mhm.
And two of, what may have been like the hardest board members to build connection with both laughed. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, I have won. I have won. And
It's like a
it's a
challenge.
challenge.
Like, I'm gonna get in there and crack
Yes.
them. I'm gonna crack
Yes.
them.
And
Yeah.
going into that, had somebody said to me, keep it all business, like don't,
Mhm.
it was, which, you and I are both very smart individuals. We also are very charismatic and we're
Mhm.
very good at connecting, which
Mhm.
makes,
Mhm.
which makes
Mhm.
we're doing this for that reason. But I thought, how led astray would I have
Yeah.
been?
Yeah.
And then realized, an executive team makes really hard decisions and nothing against HR because I think we do bring very powerful decision making, situations to them. But sometimes they just want somebody to tell the story in a
Yes.
way that get ignites. A lot of times we're igniting excitement
Yes.
because we
Inspiration.
want inspiration. We want we want their support. We want them to get as excited as we are. We have defined the business
Yep.
case very well, maybe
Mhm.
even floated some funny, like, here's our exit strategy.
Love it.
But then we're telling the story and we want them to get on board. I mean, we
Mhm.
are selling a
Yes.
solution to them,
Yes.
even if you're internal. And so, like,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, you can come in and show me all the data that I already read in your 800, page pre
Mhm.
read.
Mhm.
Sell it to me now.
And selling is emotion.
It is.
Selling is feeling.
Yes.
Selling is not data. Selling is not stone cold.
No.
Selling is connection.
Yeah.
And that, what you're saying about storytelling, like, I wonder if that's part of the potential reframe for executive presence, where instead of it being about performing and being about being something you aren't or
Yeah.
becoming emotionless, it's about looking at how you can be a storyteller in these environments.
Right.
And sure, different environments require different stories,
Yeah.
right? If you're going to storytell to a body of employees, I feel the same way. Like, some people walk into a town hall for employees with their executive presence on, and employees are like, "Oh my god, I got to listen to this for like the next 20 minutes. I
I'm
don't
gonna
want
do my
to."
Sudoku or whatever,
Exactly.
right?
It's like, learn how to tell stories with your authentic self. And
Yeah.
sure, you can reposition a story slightly differently for different audiences, just like you would in
Right.
selling.
Right.
But it's learning how to find your humanity and your authenticity in each one of those circumstances. And executive presence doesn't allow you to do that, at least how it's been
Been
defined to
defined
date.
previously. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I do think, there are some very hard topics that are talked about in an executive meeting, some very tough
Mhm.
decisions.
Mhm.
But then I go back to at the end of the day, we are humans. Like,
Yes.
and why is it, this is how I feel, is why is it
Tell me.
when I'm really good at filtering how I feel. I am always thinking to myself, this is why do you all of a sudden walk into an executive meeting to present and you are now like, we are want to see you fail.
Yes. It is. It's all of us. I mean, that is what the stage feels like. It
feels
like
very
they are just
much
waiting
like
for you
that.
to mess up. Like,
Yes.
let's see if she stumbles.
Yes.
Like, let's see when she cracks a smile or cracks a,
This isn't funny.
Yeah.
No,
we're human.
we are all human.
Let's try to
yes.
find a little bit of joy in the experience. Okay, so I actually have a hilarious story that's related to this, but it wasn't in a boardroom because this is what happens. This idea follows us outside of the boardroom.
Oh, absolutely.
It follows us into networking situations. It
Yeah.
follows us into spaces where we're supposed to find camaraderie, where we're supposed to build connection, get proximate with other
Mhm.
people. So I went to a women's conference this year. 8,000 people.
8,000 women.
8,000 women, all women leaders in this giant room. And this guy gets up to give his keynote talk. And
Yeah.
I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
He was really charismatic. He was talking about things I cared about. I was vibing. I'm like, yes, this guy, he's got it. It's going to be great. I'm like,
Are you like hyping up your fellow?
Yes, I'm like, come on, like everybody get into this. So part of his talk was to get like a call response from the people in the room. So
Oh,
he
yeah.
wanted to say something and then he wanted people to say it back.
Okay.
Poor guy. He was trying to get a room full of 8,000 business women to repeat back like a campground song.
Oh.
So, I mean, he went there. He
Yeah.
was really trying and he did not know what he was dealing with because he would do the call and no one responded. No one out of this entire room. And it was this extremely emotional, like vulnerable story.
It was very like childlike. Like you could, you almost got to have
It was
fun, like
like,
let loose,
let
with it.
loose, have
Yeah.
fun and play. So he does it again. And I am like, yes, I am trying to like rally the troops.
You're
to,
carrying
like, say
it was like 7,999 of them were not aligned.
We're
But you were
not
like, I'm doing
aligned.
it.
I was even just for the sake of him. I
Yes,
felt so
'cause
badly.
you want him to succeed.
I want him to succeed, but more than that, I walked away feeling like this idea of executive presence
Yeah.
has held us to our core so strongly that even in a room full of 8,000 other
Yes.
females,
Yes.
we cannot express ourselves.
Okay.
We cannot allow that part of ourselves to be seen. And then, go back to the whole idea of LinkedIn performity and the stages that we have to
Yes.
put ourselves on. I was like really, really sad. And then, there were
That
all
makes
these other
sense.
stacked up keynotes for the day that were all about finding your authentic voice, stepping out, and I was
Were you
kind of
like, where were
talking
you
about
guys?
an elephant in the flipping room because,
Yeah.
here are all these women really inspired by these and they were female speakers after that,
Yeah.
really inspired by these female speakers, but yet I know, they're not all walking out into spaces where they can practice that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such an important point. Something resonated with me though, when you talked about heaven forbid that somebody acts in a way that is not executive like. And I am not
Mhm.
talking about, a code of ethics here, but
Sure.
I'm talking
Right,
about,
right.
somebody having fun at the
Mhm.
holiday party by dancing.
Right?
We shouldn't erode. We carry over so much of people's behavior that we shouldn't be judgy on to fit into this mold of what an executive looks like. Some of the most successful executives that I've worked with, worked for, and alongside of were the most unafraid and
Yes.
unapologetic to
Yep.
be who they were.
Yep.
And that showed up in revenue. And I always
Yeah.
want to go back to that because I think some people could say they just talk about topics on there and they don't even think about revenue. We damn sure do.
Yeah.
We're thinking about
100%.
revenue all the time. But it
Yeah.
goes back to we're not clear what an executive is, much less what executive presence actually means.
Actually looks like.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like the more that we can find ways to create space in executive presence looking like having fun,
Yes.
executive
Yes.
presence looking like showing a bit of emotion.
Doing something wrong and admitting it.
Yes, having empathy for the person who's never presented to the executive team before
Exactly.
coming in and giving them a little smile, giving them a little joke to help them feel more comfortable.
Yes.
There isn't anything wrong with that. And not only that, to your point about revenue and results, I think in organizations where they allow people to be themselves more,
Yeah.
they see the results that come from that.
Absolutely.
The more that someone feels comfortable, the more that someone feels like they can bring we'll get into the whole self topic, so I'm not even
Yes.
gonna say the whole self thing,
Yes.
but the more that they can step into spaces and not feel judged. Let's
Yes.
put it that way.
And pressure.
And pressured. Some pressure's
I
good.
mean, so yes.
Some pressure's good,
Yes.
but I know what you mean. The more that we can create those kind of spaces, the better performance you're going to see out of everyone, because otherwise people are holding back.
Yeah.
They're holding back. And I can tell you there have been a lot of times, not so much anymore, but when I was young in my career and I would go to present to the executive team, that I would hold back.
Yeah.
I would be sitting on a bank of knowledge.
Yes.
A bank of knowledge. I mean, I knew those organizations inside and out. I knew the secrets, right? But I wasn't the hell if I was going to say them in front of the stone cold faces.
The truths.
Right? The truths.
There were probably trigger phrases.
They were trigger
in
phrases
there.
that needed to be avoided.
Scrub the employees survey for certain topics so that we couldn't talk about them. But then, I do think that goes back to, again, is setting people up for success, but in the success of how it looks for that individual, and not having, I don't want a bunch of automatons. When I've been on an executive team, I have a unique contribution, and I think we need to make space for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and have you ever been in a situation where I don't know if this happens to you as much as it does me. I can feel it. We even talked about it for this. I can feel it when my corporate presence voice starts to come out. And I can see it happening, especially if it's on a Zoom where you can actually, I sit different. My all of the emotion goes away, and I start to literally, I sound more robotic.
Yeah.
I don't sound like myself. And as I'm listening, you start to get in your head and you're listening to it. And I'm like, it's not as powerful.
It's not.
It's actually not as powerful.
Well, you're fighting something, so you're using energy to show up in a different way. Okay.
Yeah.
I remembered a story that I want to tell you. As we do, all organizations do talent reviews. I have a whole that's a whole nother topic. But I sat in talent reviews so many times where almost every single person as opportunity for growth was better executive presence. After I heard it the 15th time, I was like, well, can somebody tell me, give me an idea? Some people will get mad. They're like, executive presence.
They do.
And I thought, okay. Well, what? And then I'd say, well, Joe, what is executive presence to you? And the executive presence to Joe was very different than what it was from Shelley, which is very, and I thought,
all subjective.
Yes. How are you going to communicate this to somebody or give them, how are we going to build this up? And so I think if you are going to use that term in an organization, or you're going to demand something, which I would not recommend, but I would get very clear on what you are looking for. The other thing is going back to storytelling, I actually think when I peeled the onion on it, it was the ability to tell a story. They'd be like, well, Joe, he just lingers. He's like an energy vampire. He just steals so much, gets really technical. And I said, well, then call it that.
Right.
Executive presence is if you're working on it, it's also, well, I'm working on my executive presence. It's you're actually working on your ability to not bore people. Let's just be honest.
Let's call it like it is. Right.
Yes.
You need to be more articulate. You need to be able to get to your point faster.
Right.
You need to, show up and sit up. Whatever the thing is. But I do draw a line, though, in sometimes when you ask people, and I've never had anybody, have I had anybody say this to me? Maybe had somebody say it to me. There are some times where people, when they talk about executive presence, they actually mean just presence. They just mean
don't wear sweats.
Don't wear sweats. Or so let's face it, after motherhood, you gotta refine your body. You gotta fit new clothes. There's a whole phase where you kind of go through
my maternity clothes for the next 2 years.
Exactly.
And then I'm pregnant again, probably.
And then you're shaping it all again. There was a lot happening after I had babies.
Yes.
And I had to find a whole new thing. And I swear what people wanted to say was, you just need to dress better. Nobody ever actually said that, but I know that's actually what they meant.
Yes.
They meant show up. And I'm not going to lie, there's some truth to that, right? In certain circles, not all circles, but certain corporate environments, there is a truth to how you show up and what you wear. But I also had somebody once, they didn't say anything beforehand, I have gray in my hair, go like
Yeah.
au naturel. But for a while, I was like deciding what to do, and I would tint the gray. And there was a time that I showed up at work after I tinted the gray, and the conversation that I got and the attention that I got for having tinted the gray was so significant. It was like, "Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Oh, why didn't you do that sooner?" Or what, da, 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 da. I was like, like
You
I
just want
literally
to crawl inside of
yes.
yourself. I know. Okay, that's that I think I remember you sharing that and me being appalled too. I also remember recently there was an executive who met with a group of consultants and came back, and I remember asking them how it went, and they said they weren't wearing a suit. And I thought,
Oh,
who cares? It
who
wasn't one of those
cares?
meetings. And, I think we also have to get back to there is an element of respect. But if somebody isn't wearing a tie and, the best suit out there, but is bringing you passion or bringing you confidence,
Mhm.
bringing you intelligence with what they deliver, like that is really important.
That should be the definition of executive presence.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
should be the content of what you are offering,
Yes.
told in an impactful, inspiring, and powerful way.
Yeah.
And if that means for that person to get it across, they need to do it in their most authentic way, dressed however
Right.
makes them feel good, then why should it matter? Why does the other stuff matter?
It says more maybe about the recipient of the
True.
message than it does of the person
True.
delivering the message, which I think, let's like, so I think we sat in it, we talked about it a lot. Like you said something that I think, and, we talked about this too, is maybe the reframe is really figuring out what good looks like
Yeah.
as your, and it doesn't even have to be in an organization. If I'm going to do a pitch to
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
really understanding, and fortunately now most of these partners and clients are pretty cool and it's done
Yes.
virtually, but also the ability to, I don't really love this, but to read the room, as you and I are very good at seeing signals and seeing
Mhm.
nonverbals. And when people say you have to be in a room to do that, I'm like, no, you don't.
Oh, no, not at all.
And so just
Mm.
seeing how people react and in very human ways, pivoting, making minor iterations. But then I think the big reframe is get the storytellers, like
Yeah. Yeah.
raise the storytellers up. They should be the winners when you are presenting material. Why? It's like if you get in front of the CEO, then they will remember that. Well, put the storyteller in front of there. They should
Yeah.
remember the storyteller.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. I think too, for the people, the reframe for individuals, right,
Hmm.
is I think we're walking into a new era of business.
Yeah,
I
talk
think
about it.
not all organizations are going to do it the same way,
Yeah,
just like not all individuals are going to do it the same way.
yeah,
And so, yeah, obviously, we hope we're making this podcast for change makers and the
yeah.
brave people who want to see things happen better
Hmm.
and differently. And so, I think one question to be asking ourselves is what's one old way of showing up that we
Hmm.
can shed?
Yeah.
Again, this is
Yes.
about creating safe moments to allow our nervous systems to step into something new.
Yeah.
And so the organizations haven't fully changed yet. We do have some executive teams that still want presence and stone cold. But what's one thing that you can
Hmm.
let go of and try out and do a little differently to be part of moving that change
And to
forward?
hold on to who you are.
Exactly. And to bring in,
Yes.
and this is where I know we'll talk about this in another podcast, this idea of bringing your whole self to work and
Right.
airing all your dirty laundry and putting it all out there. Neither of us are huge fans of that either. We also know that not everybody needs to do that in order
Yeah.
to do their jobs well. And in some ways, you need more a sense of boundaries and
Yeah.
safety. So, again, it's finding the one or two ways that you can show up just a little bit more yourself
Yeah.
inside these systems to push the edges, just like a little bit.
Well, and leaders who are coaching and developing people and say that they need more executive presence, make space for
Yes.
an individual's uniqueness. You made up, said this one good point, like, what can you shed? we get so afraid to ask people what they're afraid of. I had a
Yes.
leader once who said to me, "Where are you lacking confidence right now? And
Mm,
where are you really excelling in
I
confidence?"
love that.
And it's sometimes it's just the act, again, going back to being human, of
Mhm.
disarming somebody and setting the conditions for them to
Yes.
do well. I've been in organizations where I'm like, I think my leader wants me to fail in this moment too, and that
Yeah.
doesn't feel
That
well.
doesn't feel
It
good.
doesn't feel well at all. But I will tell you, in all of the times that I have presented to all different types of boards, all different types of executive teams, they love a truth teller,
Yes.
somebody that tells it, that has a story behind it
Mhm.
where they can get on board. They're going to go on the journey with you.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we will not make space for that ability unless we flex a little bit
Yeah.
in what the even hell executive
Executive
presence
presence
is. And
is
you're right, it's changing. We can't stop the train.
no, we can't stop the train. And I loved what you said about if we can anchor executive presence more to the content of the story and the
Yes.
delivery of the story than the presence of the person.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
should be about the content.
Right.
Everything should be about the business, the results, and not so much about how someone looks on the outside while they're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Listen to the words,
Yes.
and
Yes.
give a person some space. The other thing I would say for leaders trying to coach someone on this, earlier you made this point of be really clear on what they actually need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Telling someone to just work on executive presence, I like when it happened to me, I did go in YouTube. I was like, what is this? What are we even talking about? And there are people who will teach it, but the way they teach it is basically to mask who you are.
Yeah.
And that's not right. So as a
No.
leader, start getting really clear about the thing that the person actually needs to work on and help them
Right.
grow in doing it. Then the other thing I want to say before yes, almost time to close out. I also hold a lot of space for the idea that we are two white women talking about
Yes.
this. And I think maybe it's one of these topics that we should be bringing on other people to talk with
Absolutely.
us because we know it's different for people of color. We know it's different for women of color. We also
Yes.
know that men suffer from this too. It's
Absolutely.
not only women
No.
who have this terrible relationship with executive presence. And so
Yeah.
I do want to create a space for that because this is our experience, but we only have our own.
We only
So,
have our own. And I think we both have people that we could
mhm.
bring on to talk about this struggle and how they've overcome it or how they're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, we are going to have a through line of some things, but
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right. Our lived experience is going to be different.
Yeah.
Okay, again, not something that we're going to solve here, but that isn't what we promise our
Right.
listeners. We do want you to find us on LinkedIn,
Yep.
and we will always have that in our show notes. We also want to hear about your stories
Yes.
of how you've, interpreted executive presence in a way that's really pushed you forward, but also like what you're still dealing with as a challenge. Because again, we're here to surface things and talk through them. We don't always have
All the
we don't
answers.
have the answers, and that's what makes this great. So thank you for being here with us and practicing brave proximity. We look forward to seeing you on the next show.